I have to go back to sharing the fact that I lived on the reserve, and prior to coming to school I really did not have much to do with Wodjula people or non-Aboriginal people. I was in my own community with my family. So we were a community where we were all the same, we were all together, and there was a lot of love, a lot of sharing, a lot of caring, and life was great, and I felt very happy. I believe that first year at school was a real culture shock for me, because I had to leave the reserve, come from a happy and safe environment to an environment that was so foreign, really, really foreign. You'd look at all the other kids and they had their lunches packed, they had sandwiches, they had all what they had for lunch, but I never really had a packed lunch. And the reason for that was we didn't have electricity on, as in at the reserve. We didn't have a fridge that you could buy foods to keep cool. So it was easier for my mother to give us lunch money. So we were given lunch money, and I remember the exact amount when I started school was 15 cents to buy my lunch with. But of course, being 5, my older brother was in charge of our lunch money. However, there were some times occasionally that we would have to have or bring something from home. It was very rare, but nevertheless there were times. And for us it was sometimes we would have to not have bread. We didn't have bread. My mum would make, our traditional type of food was damper. So we'd have damper with a bit of butter and hopefully some jam, and that was our lunch. So for me, sitting in this lunch shed eating my lunch, it was a shame thing when I had to eat that lunch from home. And I think it was shame because the other kids made fun of what you would eat or asked you, because it was different. It was different to what they had. And I wouldn't sit out in the open like this. I would find the corner, and the girls' section was down this end, so I'd sit down there in the corner and try and be on my own, and hopefully nobody would come and sit next to me so I could eat my lunch, and no one would make fun of what I was eating. So that was one of the big culture issues. The other was, trying to fit in to white society. And I found one of the hardest things was language. We spoke a lot of our language, a lot of our Noongar language on the reserve. The old people spoke it, we spoke it, and when you come to school, the teacher said, I don't want you speaking your language, you must speak English. You must learn to speak proper English. And I found that really difficult because I couldn't work out what were our Noongar words and what were the English words. That was quite difficult for me. I didn't know. So I'd get in trouble all the time for saying a Noongar word and be corrected every time. And there was a time when a couple of other Noongar kids and we were in trouble for speaking our language for too much, and the teacher said, well, you're going to have to learn. So we actually got the cane. We got the cane, on our hands, and for speaking our language. So when you get the cane for something like that, you try to remember, or you learn what to say and what not to say. For me, I just felt I was better off not saying anything at all in front of the teacher. So I guess I kind of withdrew and wouldn't engage. I also, in year 1, I had a lot of problems with my ears. I had what they call otitis media, which is middle ear infections, and this was certainly common for me throughout the year. So sometimes I'd be sitting in the class and I couldn't hear. I could see the teacher's mouth moving, but I had no idea what the teacher was saying. So her mouth would be moving, but I didn't know what she was saying. So I guess really, along with my hearing problems, and also where I lived on the reserve, there was a lot of things that I had to deal with. So it ended up where I had to repeat year 1. And in a way, I wasn't happy because I felt like I was dumb. And I overheard the teacher say to my mum, well, you know, she's just not very smart. She's a bit slow. I always used to think, well, I have to go to school even though I'm not going to do well. And I always felt inferior, never good enough, and couldn't really understand why my mother insisted that she made sure we attended school. We had to come to school every day, and I basically hated school for all these number of reasons.